You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh God, the bosses crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
we
Paine?
will not raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's gonna be wholly unprofessional.
Eight together strong. Let that be your mantra.
And today we're going to learn about
Philadelphia in the first couple years of the Great Depression.
so fun stuff.
Yeah, it'll be really cheery. This will be fun.
All right, so right out of the starting gate, we're going for things that need trigger warnings. This is great. I love it.
I don't... there's some police brutality, but that's about it.
They had that back then?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I thought it was just like a recent thing.
No, they had police, and the two go hand in hand. So, I guess we'll start by explaining what the Great Depression was and kind of how it started. The Great Depression was really just a big snowball effect of economic crises. It started mostly in 1929 after Black Monday, which is when the stock market crashed in October of that year. And that led to a run on banks, which led to a bunch of bank closures, which led to people losing money, which led to a decline in consumers buying things, which led to businesses closing, which caused this whole giant snowball. Obviously, that was a gross simplification of the whole problem, but...
So the bank screwed up.
Yeah, banks screwed up.
Everything's okay.
By April of 1930, 135,000 Philadelphians were jobless. Another 46,000 were only working part-time. Then a year later in 31, there were 250,000 unemployed, which was more than a quarter of the total workforce.
That's significant.
Yeah. And that just kept getting worse until March of 33, when the New Deal started to kick in. And the worst it ever got was 40% of the workforce, or only 40% of the workforce was employed full-time, which means that the other 60% was either underemployed or unemployed. During all of this, there were a bunch of runs on banks, which is when everyone freaks out. And actually...
I've seen that scene in So Wonderful Life. Yeah, it's a good scene, yeah.
When it's commercial banks rather than... because
the old Bailey building and loan.
Yeah, the building and loan was more of like a credit union. When it's a commercial bank, it's your money is in my bonus, and his money is in this stock portfolio that we just lost $50 million on, and blah, 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 blah. So one of the biggest bank runs in Philly was on the Erie National Bank at 6th and Erie Ave. It was like most bank runs. Bunch of people all tried to get their money out at once because they wanted to make sure that they could, or it was almost like a first come, first serve basis. So if you could get there early, you might actually get some money out. But the bank actually survived the run, which was pretty rare, and stayed open until 1935. So most of the other banks didn't survive didn't survive the runs. And by 1933, 50% of commercial banks in the city had closed. And this was before the FDIC, so no one's...
So they were screwed.
Yeah, no one's money was
You ain't getting your money back.
It was just gone. So your whole life savings gone in like a matter of days. During all of this, Philly was still pretty conservative. It had been dominated by basically a Republican political machine since the 19th century. And so at this point, the Republican Party was very conservative, very business centered. And they kind of took that not my brother's keeper approach to a lot of their populace starving.
As in they just didn't care?
Yeah.
It's not my problem.
They just, nope. So between 1929 and 33, between 1929 and 1933, there were 90,000 families who lost their homes. There were Hoovervilles, which were like shanty towns, popping up all around the city.
Named after President Hoover.
Yeah, because he had that lovely approach too. And then a lot of other people squatted in abandoned houses. So, especially coming off this past year of big demands for housing rights in Philly, that's not a new issue. Due to the lack of government response, private charities tried to fill the gap because people don't like seeing people starve. And the Philadelphia government actually hadn't given out assistance to the needy since 1879.
89, 99, 09, 19. That's about 50 years.
40
I
years.
think.
Yeah.
I counted on my fingers,
no,
and I got
50.
5.
Yeah, 50.
Yeah. Don't question my finger counting.
You don't know
abilities
the
again.
maths. The city did, however, try to provide some relief. It created the Committee on Unemployment.
I thought you were going to say the Committee on Ice. I got really excited.
And that was, to lead that committee, they brought on Horatio Lloyd Gates, who was a banker.
You sure he wasn't a rear admiral?
He very well might have been. I don't know. So they brought one of the people that caused the crisis to come and help fix it, which is brilliant.
Which is justice, slightly? I mean, he should do that?
I don't think he had to actually give anything up to do it, which was part of the
makes
problem.
so much sense. Things never change.
No. So they organized used clothing drives. They offered food and fuel vouchers. They did provide homeless shelters for 3,000 men. There were 90,000 homeless families. And then all of that shut down when funding dried up in 1932. So that didn't work.
I think the theme song to this podcast should just be like all the air and all the hope and all the passion for life just leaving the body. In a sound. That is the theme song to this episode. And the whole podcast in general.
Yeah, we're happy and entertaining here. And labor history.
I'm worried about our mental health.
Yeah.
Because we don't have like a health plan on this podcast. We got nothing worked out.
I don't think we're making money.
Well, we're trying to. That's the point. We're trying to get sponsors here.
So, happier stuff. There was some cool labor activism. So all of the labor unions really started to pick up to help out their members and to make sure that, people didn't starve to death. And
adequate.
Yeah.
I'll let this slide.
Yeah.
Just one time.
It's hard to have a union if everybody's dead. So
that is very true.
Yeah. So the CPUSA, which was the Communist Party of the USA, and the two major socialist parties also were organizing in Philly and trying to help people out. The the Communist Party was actually organizing textile workers up in Kensington. And their basic demands were housing relief, food, and they were demanding public works jobs. So in 1931, an interracial group of 2,000 workers, organized by the Communist Party, marched to City Hall demanding, as the Daily Worker said, which is the Communist Party newspaper at the time, they were demanding bread and real relief, decrying the fake charity of the Mackey administration, who was the mayor at the time. Because basically doing the private charity thing just wasn't working, and people were still starving. So as they were marching to City Hall, 6,000 other people joined them. And then they got there, and half of City Hall was roped off by the police so that others in the city could see the baseball scores.
Oh.
Yeah, this gets weird.
Oh, here we go. All right, I'm ready for this one now.
So the leader of the unemployed council, a fellow named Frank Fisher, called a vote on the demands for the demonstrators, and they decided on free milk and transport to school for their children, a tax on all income exceeding $25,000, no evictions for unemployed workers, and then they wanted the relief funds to be controlled by the workers rather than through the charities. So basically, they wanted direct payments to the workers rather than the city funding a charity that then gives some relief to the workers.
Yeah, but who's batting in the ninth? That's what I want to know.
Exactly. So, those demands were all agreed on, and then they elected another multiracial committee of 7, which is in 1930s
This is pretty
in the
big
US.
stuff, yeah.
Like, there was a lot of multiracial organizing in Philly. So they elected a committee of 7 to present these demands to the mayor. So they all marched into the mayor's office, and the mayor's secretary informed them that he had gone to St. Louis to see the baseball game.
There's a theme here.
So then 3,000 of those workers marched all the way up to the offices of the relief agency, which was the one led by Horatio Lloyd Gates.
They're doing this all wrong. They have to march right to Shibe Park and
Exactly.
and stop the game to get any recognition at all.
Philly really hasn't changed, that if there's a baseball game happening, the whole city just doesn't function. So they went up to the Lloyd Committee offices, forced their way into the building, and then a bunch of police showed up and started to try and clear them out of the alleyway, because the entrance to the Lloyd Committee was like down a little side street. So the protesters held their ground and basically were just jostling and fighting with the cops for 45 minutes. And then it was announced that Mr. Lloyd could not be reached. It was unclear whether or not he was at the baseball game.
Sorry, you beat me to it.
So then those 3,000 guys marched back to City Hall. So they're getting their...
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's a lot of walking. And demanded to present their case to City Council. Then they were met by more police, because the police were also harassing them their entire way down back to City Hall, who refused to let anyone enter the council chamber. And then once they realized that literally no one in city government was going to listen to them, the crowd...
They started playing baseball.
Yeah. That's the only way to get any
pick
attention
up baseball
in Philly.
game.
So
the mayor would have came out. What's the score?
Yeah, exactly. They slowly dispersed, but they then started organizing more of these hunger marches and kept agitating, trying to get some level of relief from the city, who was really just unwilling to actually help its citizens. So yeah, that's why you don't organize protests at the same time as a baseball game in Philadelphia, is the takeaway.